Hi everyone, it's Lindy on here from Pink Whisper Designs. Today I'm really happy to be showing you another new set from the Art Impressions Spring 2022 collection. And we're going to be making this really pretty floral Shadowbox window card. So let's go ahead and get started. This is an add-on set to the Shadowbox window die collection. And there are several different sets available in this collection, and I will list those down below for you. Now you do need the Shadowbox window die in order to get started, and that is a separate die set. And I'll talk about that a little bit later on. And you can see how pretty this set is. It does come with that little potted plant, the little potted tulips, and there is a separate die for that as well. And the sentiment around this image says, "May the coming year be blooming with happiness and many moments to remember." So that is just so pretty. So let's go ahead and get started with our coloring. For coloring today, I'm using the Tim Holtz Distress Markers, and I'll be using Mowed Lawn, Weathered Wood, Vintage Photo, Dried Marigold, Mustard Seed, Peacock Feathers, Abandoned Coral, Spiced Marmalade, and Mermaid Lagoon. And these are a dual tip marker, and they are a water-based marker. So we're going to be using the Strathmore Bristol Smooth 100-pound cardstock. And for stamping, we're using the VersaFine Onyx Black ink pad, which is a permanent black ink. So let's go ahead and start coloring in the little tulips here. And I'm using my Zig blender pen to do my blending. So you could also use water here because these are a water-based marker, so either way would work fine. I like using that Zig blender pen because it just gets into these tiny little areas really easily. And it's not too wet. Sometimes a water brush can be a little bit too wet. So I find this has the perfect amount of solution in it. So I'm going to use that today. And I'm going to finish coloring this in. And again, this particular image has the coordinating die. And that's so that it can pop up inside your little Shadowbox window. But we're going to do this a little bit differently today. We're going to stamp and die cut two of these. I'm just going to show you the coloring on one of these, but off camera, I'll stamp and color a second one of these. So I'm just adding a little bit of shadowing along the edges and then kind of pulling that in towards the center, keeping that center area very light. Now I'm going to speed up the coloring and do all the rest of the coloring for all these little images inside here. And then I'll go ahead and I'll meet you on the other side. So let me give you a closer look at this, all colored in. And now I'm going to stamp and color in a second one of those little potted plants. So now here's the Shadowbox window die set that I mentioned earlier. And what that does is creates that little pop-up in the inside of your card. So this is kind of the opposite of what we normally do. This little Shadowbox will be on the inside of your card. And you get all of these dies in the set. And you also get that little sentiment that says hello. We'll be using that today as well. So I'm setting aside a couple of those little pieces, and then I've grabbed these here. Now for that first piece up top, I'm using a 65-pound weight paper because that'll be for the inside of our card. And then I'm using 100-pound weight for these other two pieces here. So again, for this piece that creates the little shadow window inside the card, I want the paper to be a bit lighter. I don't want it to be too bulky on the inside of my card. And you can see that creates the score lines that we need as well. So I'm using my iCraft glue to attach the hello together. Now I did die cut 3 of those, again out of that 100-pound cardstock. So I'm going to layer these up, and that's going to give us a nice thick embellishment. And you do want to take a little time just to line those up properly. And now you can see how nice and thick that is. So I'll grab my Wink of Stella glitter pen. This is just a clear glitter pen. And I'm going to add that glitter all over the top of this. And that'll just give it a nice little sparkle. So I'll just give you a closer look at that real quickly here. And then let's set that aside to dry. Now I'm taking that second largest rectangle, and that's from the Rectangle A2 double stitch dies. And then I'm grabbing some plaid paper. This is from the Perfectly Plaid 6x6" petite paper pack from Lawn Fawn. So I'm going to go ahead and die cut this. I'll tape that down with a little bit of purple tape, and then I'll run that through my Spellbinders Platinum 6 die cutting machine. Now let's go back to this window set, and I'm going to grab that little square die. So we want to cut the opening in our card so that we can see through to that little shadow window. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually cut the top panel first. So I'm going to place this square die exactly where I want it on my card, and I'm going to tape that down with a little bit of purple tape, and then I'll run that through the die cutting machine. And then what we'll do is we'll die cut this again, but I like to run that first panel through first. You could certainly run these through at the same time if you prefer. I believe that it would die cut through both pieces, but I find it, I don't know, I just feel a little bit more safe just running that top piece through, making sure that I line it up perfectly. And now you can see that I'm going to position that plaid paper right back on the front of my card, making sure that it's centered properly. Then I can go ahead and pop that die right down into place, and it'll pretty much lock right into place. And now I can run that through the die cutting machine again. And you do want to make sure you open up your card before you run that through. So I can remove that little square piece, and now I'm removing the tape from that die, and that'll sit right on the front of my card. So now we've die cut through both pieces, and we can see all the way through that card now. So let's go back to that iCraft glue. I'm going to go ahead and place glue all over the back of this panel. And I am using glue here because I do want a little bit of time to move this around, make sure that it's lined up as best as I can. So I want to take a little time with that. I'll even reach in the inside of the card here just to make sure that it's lined up with that opening. I did have a little bit of adhesive left from that purple tape, so I'm just using that little eraser there to remove that. And now let's go ahead and create the little shadow piece for our card. So I've got this piece that we die cut earlier. I'm going to fold it towards me, and then away from me. And I'm using that bone folder to press that out. So that'll create like a little Z fold. So towards you and then away from you. And you do want to press that out really well. So now I can go ahead and cut out my image. Now I am cutting away that sentiment today. I'm not going to be using that today, but you could certainly just use that image with the sentiment on the front of a card. You don't even have to create this little shadow box window if you don't want to. It's just pretty all by itself. So I'm cutting away. I'm following the lines on that square stamp, and I'll go ahead and glue this right into the little shadow box here. I do want to make sure that I press that glue out to the edges just so that it lays nice and flat here. And I'm centering it on the inside of that panel. So I'll set that aside to dry. Once that's dry, I also wanted to show you these little tulip pop-ups can go right inside there. We're not going to be doing that today, but that is how it's designed. So keep that in mind as well. That would just give you another option here. So now I've got my glue, and you've got these little tabs where we folded it back. I'm going to put glue just on that little tab, and then I'm going to line that up behind this window. And I'm lining that tab up right along the edge of that opening. I'm just checking here to make sure that I have it lined up really well. And then I'll open up the card, grab my bone folder, and just make sure I press that out. Now I can go ahead and do the other side. Now I do want to make sure that this lays nice and flat when my card is closed. So the best way to do that is just to push it down flat, then fold that little tab back, and then place some glue on that tab. And now I'm pressing that out, make sure I have it edge to edge. And now I can press this down, and again pressing it out with the bone folder. So that'll line up perfectly in our little opening there. You can see that creates a little shadow box. So since we're not going to place that little container of tulips inside this window, we can go ahead and place the window frame. And I'm going to just put glue directly on the card just to make sure that it's right along those edges there. Now I can glue this down. And remember, that's a 100-pound cardstock, so it's a little bit thicker, our window frame. So it gives it a little bit of substance. You could always layer up those frames as well if you want it to be a little bit more prominent there. So now let's grab that hello. It's nice and dry. And then those two tulip containers are going to sit on the side of that sentiment. So let's go ahead and die cut those first. I'm placing that coordinating die, and that is the only die you do get with the set. And I'm going to run that through the Sizzix Sidekick machine. Now we can go back to that hello, and I'm going back to my glue, and I'm going to just glue this down. And I'm using a clean piece of paper just to press that into place. And now we can position these two containers. I'm going to place one flat on the card, and the other one there I'll pop up with a little bit of foam mounting tape. So you can see how cute these little shadow box windows are. And again, there's quite a few in the collection now. So all of the products I've used today are listed and linked down below and also on my blog. So now let's add a few little gems here. I'm using the Hero Hues enamel dots. And I like to just leave them on the plastic and then just cut them out, and then I can position them around my card until I decide where they want to be, and then I peel it off that little piece of plastic. I just find it easier to cut them down to little squares, and then I can move them around on my card until I'm ready to place them permanently. So let's take a closer look at the finished card. And that little scene is just so beautiful. I absolutely love that. And we've got that pretty plaid paper and our cute little tulips. So I really hope you enjoyed today's video. If you did, please hit the like button and subscribe. And don't forget to hit that notification bell so that you don't miss a single video. As always, thank you for joining me today. I really do appreciate it. Take care and have a great day. Bye-bye.